Welcome to the Glamorous Grind, where grit meets glamour and the law is always in style. This week, we're welcoming a guest both Alona and I are very excited to have.
Our guest has been on the front lines of justice and protection for decades. She's leading the charge against human trafficking in San Diego and the mastermind behind One Safe Place, our new partner and the subject of last week's episode.
She's the DA of San Diego, Stephan.
Well, Summer, we're so honored to have you here with us, considering your busy schedule and everything you do for the County of San Diego. Tell us a little bit about your career and how you became the District Attorney of San Diego.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be with you. I know that you do a lot of good in the community, and this is a part of informing because knowledge is power, I believe. So anytime we can provide knowledge about public safety issues, we can also save lives. So I'm very excited to join you today. The way it started for me is really a little bit strange. I was reading a National Geographic magazine. I was 12 years old, and I got stuck on an image. And as everybody knows, National Geographic are known for their photographs. And you look at these photographs, you can't get them out of your mind. And it was a photograph of some girls in North Africa that looked like they were my age, but there was a big difference. They had a look of fear and hopelessness. And here I was, with so much hope and a feeling of safety because of who my parents were and how they took care of me. And I knew at that moment that my rest of my life would be about taking away that look of fear, of helplessness, and replacing it with something that feels good, that feels like justice and safety and dignity. I didn't know exactly where that would lead me, but becoming a prosecutor was the perfect blend for me, where I could be in the courtroom advocating for victims, but also part of the bigger law enforcement and public safety. And it's been a 35-year career and 28 years on the ground, trying 100 plus jury trials with victims of human trafficking and sexual assault and school threats and murders, and then ending up as the elected district attorney in 2018.
Everything you do with such passion. It's beautiful to see and very inspirational.
About a year ago, I attended an event called Sparkles Foundation, and I remember I was sitting there and watching the videos and listening to your speech, and I was secretly crying. Well, I couldn't really secretly cry, but it was so sad. I recorded part of your speech. I recorded the video. I remember I posted it on Facebook because I didn't know how bad it is. I didn't know what's going on in the world, how children are being trafficked, and it was like a reality check. I live here and I have no idea this is happening.
Well, I mean, you hit it on the nose is that when you said, I didn't know, because this is exactly what the traffickers want, is they don't want it to be visible. It's fascinating. I've studied, I've lived this, I've looked in the eyes of so many victims of human trafficking. And the reason it is the second largest criminal industry in the world and in the United States, in California and in San Diego. After the trafficking in drugs comes the trafficking in human beings for sex or labor. It's just like really hard to think about it that way, but it's a reality. It's supported by data, numbers, our own experience. And the reason that criminal organizations and criminals really gravitate towards human trafficking is because if you picture a police officer, interdicting, we put together operations and they find, we do search warrants, they find drugs there. It's not a hard case, you have the drugs there, you have the person caught red-handed. But when you're dealing with human beings, it's very hard. And the reason it's hard is that the reason it thrives so much is that the victims often don't even know they're victims. They are brainwashed into thinking that this is a life that they chose, that they're the shameful ones. After all, they're the ones that are being prostituted. We interdicted a 13-year-old the other day. on the streets right here in San Diego. At 2 a.m., we spotted her on camera with cars starting to drive by to pick her up. It took 3 months to go through the deprogramming for her to even to begin to realize that she wasn't in charge. She's 13. She's being sold like she's a slice of pizza for like a drive-by hamburger. It's actually shocking. And I never want to stop feeling angry and shocked about it. I never want to accept that this is at all part of normal society, because it isn't.
When I was a law clerk, I volunteered in an immigration law firm, and I helped this Hispanic woman who was about 18. She already had a couple of children, and her husband was prostituting her in El Cajon. She was seeking a visa based on that. She had a couple of children, and she was pregnant again, and he was making her go and be a prostitute while pregnant. And like, people go for it, and it was so shocking to me, but I didn't know this was so common.
Your example is a perfect example, because what it really illustrates is that the traffickers are not strangers. They can be family members, relatives, or they come into the circle of trust so that they can fully control the victim. We've had cases where the children are used to control, because what happens is the person who's trafficking the victim, like in your situation, will start threatening that she will lose custody. She won't have her kids. As soon as he reveals that she's been prostituted, no one is going to let her have her kids. So it traps them psychologically. It's so difficult. We had a case where this victim had like no love in her life. She was thrown out by her family. She had nothing. The only thing she had was a dog. She loved this dog. And so he would use the dog to put the dog in the pound and say, if she doesn't bring back this much money, the dog is going to be killed. So they'll use whatever the vulnerability is. That's what's being used. If it's poverty, if it's emotional poverty, like no one loves you but me, but you have to do these things for me to stay with you. So they use any ploy to fill in that vulnerability and to make the money, which is, in San Diego, we measured it at $810 million annually that was being made just by the discovered cases, the cases we were able to unravel.
To me, what's shocking also is their grasp on psychology.
You are so right. So what we did is we did this study where researchers paid inmates that we'd already convicted of trafficking to talk to them. So they would put some money on their books in prison to find out how they operated, because we needed to learn so we can unravel these cases. And what they said is they looked down on the traffickers that used open violence, because open violence brings attention. It brings screams. It brings neighbors calling. It brings police. So they operate through the psychological manipulation until they can't control the victim anymore. Then they turn to physical violence. So we're looking for society. Remember, you said it was hidden, because society is looking for physical chains. We're looking for bruises and strangulation marks and things that will tell us something is wrong. But we're not going to see that because the traffickers are making too much money to have their game unfoiled by these visible signs.
How do they operate in our region? Is it an organized ring? Do they operate on an individual level or a hybrid?
It's a hybrid. So we've interacted with, organized crime that is doing this, but a lot of gangs are involved in it, but actually they will go outside their territory for human trafficking. They will kill each other over a drug turf and war, but they will cooperate with each other when it comes to trafficking. It's such a different mindset. And then you have the one-on-one trafficking also, where it's just a relative. They learn that this is a way to make money so easy. They use their niece. They use their spouse, like you described. So that's how it operates. It's multi-level, and sometimes it is major cartels that are dealing with drug trafficking, but they also use the human part.
Can you paint a picture for our listeners? What does human trafficking look like in San Diego County?
The most prevalent is really 80% of the cases is not an international child. It is a local child that is recruited locally, because in the mind of the traffickers, if they can use someone local and keep out federal authorities or other immigration or other issues, it's safer for them, more profitable. So they use 80% local, average age 15 years old to 16 years old. That's the most prevalent. It's using social media, Instagram, using Snapchat to begin those conversations, to say, you're so pretty, you should be a model. And, why isn't anybody seeing that you're so special? And then the conversation goes on. It goes offline into private chat. And that's when the trouble begins. And pretty soon they're invited to a party. They tell mom and dad that you're going to your friend's house, and the drugs are introduced, alcohol is introduced, and then begins the sex trafficking.
Are those kids that come from broken families, from foster care, who have problems at school, or does it happen to children coming from families whose parents love them and everything is good and their life is good, and just because they got trapped into this online?
It's such a good point. I would say like 20 years ago, we used to find a whole disproportionate level when it comes to foster care kids, kids from broken homes. Now it's across the board. There's no family that's immune. That's what the power of social media has done. It erodes those protections that families have, because the trafficking is happening while the kid is getting a full meal and are in their bedroom, where you think they're just safe. Because it's about brainwashing. It's about, I call it psychological kidnap, and using those chains of psychological attachment, which people can form those relationships. If you picture even adults and they're online and they have their full frontal lobe developed, still over time, if they keep getting likes and person responds positively to them, they almost start to believe they know this person. This person is a friend, is in their circle. Social media even calls them a friend, which is ridiculous, because if you don't actually know them, they're not a friend. So the manipulation now has become where no family is immune. We had a case where this wonderful family, mother is a nurse, very intelligent, always looking for signs, talking to her child, but her child just really became entrapped with, she wasn't as popular in school. This person was giving her a ton of attention, and eventually she started disappearing, and all of a sudden they didn't see her again. Wow. Unfortunately, the way she was recovered is she was in the hospital. Her mom was on duty, but somehow didn't know her daughter was in the same hospital. She told a nurse that she was in a car accident, but it was clear the injuries were not so even being beaten up, she was still covering up and saying she was in a car accident. Her daughter was finally released, and of course released to the trafficker who pretended to be the boyfriend. The mom caught up with the information, figured it out, because the word kind of spread in the hospital. And because it was so soon after the event, we were able to come in and help recover this child. But it took a lot of, again, deprogramming for her to understand this is enslavement. This is a violation of her human dignity, human rights, because she got so manipulated over time.
It's time for Let's Get Gritty, the audience Q&A.
How can parents protect their children from such influences online? Because it seems like everybody could be impacted.
So some parents try to stay ahead and really know everything, the controls. Unfortunately, kids still outsmart them. And, some parents tell us, oh, my kid doesn't have a phone. But we find out because we find out that they're actually using their friend's phone parents should try and they should learn how to best put parental controls and use all the gadgets that are available. They should go to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There's a whole education for parents that is very easy to follow and one that I recommend highly. But despite that, I think still the best protective factor is talking. And it means even when the door is shut and your kid doesn't want to talk to you, it's constantly talking, not in a judgmental way. The way I recommend parents put it is, this could be happening to one of your friends. I want you to hear me so that you can watch the signs for your friend. Because what do kids think? They think they're smarter. They think that can't happen to them. And so if you lower the barriers and you give them the information in a non-judgmental way, they will absorb it. Also, I tell parents, always tell your kid, if you do something stupid, still come to me and I will help you manage it and clear it.
It's important to really acknowledge the importance of communicating that these things do happen, because I think the culture now is to protect our kids from everything bad, which I agree with. You know, kids should not be exposed to negativity, and there's already so much anxiety and depression among adolescents, but at the same time, they need to be aware that these things happen. I remember when I was growing up, I was always scared, because my mom would always tell me all these awful things that happened to other kids, and that prevented me from doing bad things a lot of times.
A lot of parents tell me, like, I don't want my kids learning, because now there's a law that, which I supported, that brings age-appropriate human trafficking education in the schools about internet safety, about all those things. And some parents think they can safeguard their kids by not having them get the information. Problem is, you can't safeguard them. The information is out there. So the best thing to do is to have them get the true information from you, from a trusted source, rather than have the bad guys come in and give them the information.
Is there anything from the district attorney's office that children could watch in the cartoon form, like on YouTube Kids, that would explain to them what that is and what's to look out for, how to protect themselves?
You just gave me an idea. We have all sorts of prevention campaigns that we do, but not in cartoon form. That's actually brilliant. I'm going to take that back to the team.
For my daughter to watch something like that, because she may not listen to me or understand, but if it's explained to her through cartoon, it'll register and she'll remember as she grows up.
I've seen like stranger danger cartoons and things. Sometimes I'll turn those on for my kids, but specifically targeting, sex trafficking potential, I think would be great.
So it's interesting that you should mention stranger danger, because we've done such a good job with stranger danger. But the reality is, not just in sex trafficking, but in child molest, in all of the potential of bad things that happen to kids, only 20% or less of the cases are strangers. 80% is someone in a trusted position. And we don't do enough to explain what that means, because we almost lull kids into thinking if they tell on someone that is known to them, like a nanny or a relative or a teacher even, or a coach, that something's wrong with them, because all I've heard my parents talk about is stranger danger. And this is not a stranger. So we need to empower our kids to understand that stranger is essentially anybody that does something that violates your space and your autonomy and your right over your body and your own actions.
Now we're going to play red flag, green flag. So we're going to talk about different behaviors for people who may witness these behaviors in friends or family or colleagues. And you're going to let us know if it's a red flag, meaning this person could potentially be a victim of human trafficking or labor trafficking, or a green flag, or if it's a normal behavior.
You're on an airplane and you see an older gentleman with a child who looks very nervous and has a bruise.
Red flag.
Why?
Well, because when we talk about red flags and green flags, we're talking about a totality of the circumstances. It's It's just whether it's enough for you to alert someone so that the attendant can ask more questions. We do trainings for airlines all the time. They can verify that the child belongs with this person or doesn't belong with this person. If you get this gut instincts that just anything that doesn't seem right, this is our human, self-protection mechanism. We get that sense of fear. It's called the gift of fear. That means we are feeling something that we can't even put in words. So you're probably going to not find many green flags because in combination with other things, it's going to be something that you should follow up on.
If someone expresses fear of authorities and distrust of law enforcement.
Because this is one of the number one things for traffickers is they tell the victims that police, prosecutors are not their friend and that they're going to be the ones in trouble. So that is one of the things that we look for.
A teen suddenly has expensive new clothes, tech, or nails done, but their family is struggling financially.
Yeah, definitely. This is what we teach teachers even to notice that difference, to start noting it. That's part of the training that we give teachers under the human trafficking law is where did these new items come from? Doesn't make any sense. Along with whether they find like hotel key cards or they see a child, like why does this child, if their family hasn't gone on vacation, have a hotel key card? You can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline and they will call police. And that's 888-373-7888.
So I have one that I want to bring up because I think it's important. I mean, in this day and age with social media, there are a lot of influencers. And for especially like young women, it seems like a really easy way to make money. Like you don't need an education. You just have to be pretty and show your life. So one of these that we have here is someone mentions work or modeling opportunities that sound too good to be true. Is that a thing? Do people reach out, promising that someone could be an influencer and then put them into sex trafficking?
That's absolutely a red flag. Yeah. And we've had, sadly, a few cases where these young people have gone to the location without anybody with them. So if you're a parent that also thinks which we've had parents think, oh, it's probably real, my child is super beautiful, go with them. Yeah. Tell somebody else before you go where you're going. Check it out online to see if this agency has any track record, any reviews. Is it connected with that address? Use the internet to make yourself safe by doing reverse Google, searches to see if that's even a true name that the person has given, their image. All of those things, because it definitely is a red flag. This is not how modeling agencies or influencers do business. It's not by contacting some minor online. So it's really important. But I think the even bigger point that I want to bring out is lots of times we're looking for a male trafficker. But male traffickers often also use women that maybe they exploited young, but now they've grown up and they're using them to become traffickers. So they use women to lull victims into a sense of safety. So don't just stereotype that it's going to be a male. When we talk to our kids, we have to include females.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that hackers and frauds have become so sophisticated. I mean, I've seen situations where, one person will claim to be part of an entity and they'll send their email address. And the email address is exact the name and the company name. These people are extremely sophisticated and it's important to be hyper vigilant to try and prevent these things. For this week's current event breakdown,
we asked Summer about new legislation that's pending.
There's a law that I'm fighting for right now. It's AB 379. And what it says is not just for the traffickers, but those criminal buyers who are buying kids and human beings, if they can afford to buy a human being, part of their sentence should always be that $1,000 should go into a fine bucket that is then redistributed to victims of human trafficking.
Isn't that too little?
it's too little, but believe it or not, they're fighting us on this small thing. It's not easy to pass laws in these days that go after criminals. Victims of crime in Sacramento are not getting the voice that they deserve.
Who's lobbying on behalf of criminals to fight $1,000? I don't understand.
crazy.
There's a lobby to legalize essentially prostitution, which is legalizing sex trafficking. A massive lobby
Who is
with a
supporting
ton
these?
of money.
That's insane.
It
What
is
normal person
insane.
would ever lobby for this?
Listen in to some of the arguments in Sacramento. It's really devastating. I go up there and I fight and fight. I issue press releases. Hopefully this one will pass. That's why it's balanced. We're trying to get in the door with $1,000, trying to build the fund to replenish our victims that need trauma services, shelter, and other things. Of course, we're also seeking higher punishments for people who buy 16 and 17-year-old. We want it to be a felony. It isn't a felony.
That's
currently.
crazy. So what can the citizens do to fight the lobbyists who are obviously sponsored by people who are profiting from this?
Victims don't have a well-financed lobby. They do not. What happens is they're victimized. They're trying to survive. They're not, gathering wealth and other things to support them. We bring our voice to it, but we're not the ones that are able then to support campaigns and other things that make the legislature sit up and pay attention. And it's not all of them. But unfortunately, there's enough where it's always an uphill battle.
When you prosecute criminals who are trafficking children or others, what happens to the money they launder as a result of this crime?
We go after the money, but amazingly, the traffickers are good at hiding the money. They also use the money to buy fancy things that disappear, like cars and other just ridiculous shoes. And so the money it's not like we find a ton of money in their bank account. It's spent on items and things. It's part of that terrible, frivolous lifestyle that we do work with our federal partners. There's better federal laws on being able to seize assets and use them. So we try to work together on that. Our state laws are not as good in terms of seizing all of the assets and being able to use them.
Now let's get into the legal decode.
Let's decode something that often confuses people.
How do you approach prosecutions when children are uncomfortable testifying against their traffickers or are still attached to them emotionally?
This is why I formed a specialized unit, because it's an art form. It's both being a great prosecutors that we have in the division, but it's also bringing in victim advocates, trauma-informed people that understand children, forensic interviewers that really know how to ask the right questions to draw the information without causing the child to shut down. We have to develop that trust with them. One of the hardest cases to get kids to open up about was a school shooting case that I did in Carlsbad. And I had 50 kids under the age of 6 that were going to be witnesses. And I spent a lot of time, including just going to the school in the afternoon or at lunchtime with pizza. And I don't talk to kids about the case without the right people with me, because I don't want to infect the trial. I want it to be a pure trial. But they got so familiar with my face that they were very comfortable in the courtroom, to the point where I asked one of them, what's the number one rule in court? And of course, he's supposed to say, tell the truth, because we told him that a million times. But he said, I'm in the driver's seat. I was
So
5 years old and I'm in the driver's seat. So there's a way to do those cases and to do them correctly without traumatizing the kids again. But you need a specialized team to do that.
On that note, I do want to bring up One Safe Place.
Yes.
Because you started One Safe Place. It's your baby, and it's beautiful and amazing, and we're so proud to be community partners. And one thing that One Safe Place has that I loved, especially as a mom of 3, is that when the kids are interviewed, there are cameras and everything gets done at once. And Claudia was explaining that to us so that the kids don't have to get re-traumatized. They have a therapist there, there's a camera, there's, people, she was saying that a lot of times there'll be specialists on the outside kind of watching in so that it can be just like a one and done take.
Exactly. I mean, I love One Safe Place. It was my dream to build it when I became the DA. And thank you for being partners, because it has the strength of partnership, over 100 partners, because the DA's office can't do everything. But when the community experts from every angle come in and they support our victims, over 8,000 of them have walked in the last 3 years since we opened. It's an incredible thing. We've seen domestic violence victims who just never thought they would be independent financially, because financial independence is so important to not be in a cycle of abuse. Human trafficking victims who can dream about like going to college, getting a real job where you're not being dehumanized every day. It's an incredible thing. It's sort of like, for me, I call it the rest of the story. We are really good in court as prosecutors. But what happens to that victim after the successful trial? They still have to put the pieces of their life together. And this is where the rest of the story comes in to do that.
So amazing that you're able to create such powerful organization here. And I was very inspired when I was walking through it, because as a divorce attorney, I see a lot of domestic violence, and coming from immigrating here from another country, I think it will be a wonderful thing to replicate what you have throughout the world. I would love for something like that to be in Armenia one day. If we raise awareness about domestic violence throughout the world, there's going to be less of it. If we raise awareness about human trafficking throughout the world, there'll be less of it.
I love what you said, sharing a heritage with you, our Armenian heritage. I think we should set a goal to open a family justice center, One Safe Place in Armenia.
I would love that. That's been on my to-do list for all the goals that I have in the future. I said, okay, when I don't have to work anymore, that's what I want to do. I told my cousins, when I'm ready and I have the time, we're going to go do this in Armenia first. We'll put billboards all around Armenia about domestic violence and raise awareness. And, people may hate us and we might need security guards and all. But people there, and in many countries, I think, are closed-minded when it comes to things that may hold them back that's outside of their control. If we can help people internationally get out of it, or at least give them a chance to do better in life, that would be great.
I'm happy to partner with you. That's a great goal. What's nice for San Diego County is I'm already going to open another one in the South Bay region. There's a lot of vulnerable populations there as well. But I love that idea. And what you said is important. So we used to put up billboards to tell victims of human trafficking and also domestic violence that to get out of it, right? To get out of that cycle. But where were they going to go? That's the problem. Is it's more complex than saying get out. It's how do I not become homeless then if I've been financially dependent all these years? How do I protect my children? This is where the Family Justice Center system, which is what this is, works, because you're telling them to get out, but you're also telling them how to do it. Go here so that you can be supported by everyone who's going to help you. I mean, when we look at homelessness, 40% of women and children on the street tell you that the reason they're homeless is it started with domestic violence. They were fleeing that violence, ended up on somebody's couch, then that person didn't want them anymore, and eventually they were homeless. Yeah. So when you break those cycles, you're breaking them for the next generation as well, like you said.
I think it's beautiful. And Claudia and I were talking just about this. And one of the ideas that we had, which actually next month we're doing a training, and Claudia has agreed for it to be open to the public. So not only victims of domestic violence, but any victims of domestic abuse who are trying to get back on their feet. We're going to do a training on what their rights are in the workplace, how to apply for employment, what to expect in an interview, how to dress, how to build your resume. I think we're going to have sections on all of those, and we're going to open it up to the public. We're going to live stream on Zoom, so even if people can't come in person, they can watch it on a Zoom link. How do they get back on their feet? How do they find a job? So I'm very, very
Oh,
excited
I'm
about
so
that.
thrilled that you're doing that. That's what I mean. We can't, I'm really proud to be the top public safety official in San Diego and to bring these innovations, but we always do it in partnership because we can't do it alone. And I'm so thankful for this firm and both of you for joining the fight.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been such a privilege.
The
And
time just flew, right?
I have to say, and I have not said this about a lot of people, but you are single-handedly changing the world. And that's putting it softly. You've made so many changes in so many areas of the law that foundationally have changed how things are done, and you've helped so many people. So thank you.
And you mean it, it comes from your heart, and it's been wired in you since you were 12 and continued on to now.
I'm really fortunate to have lived that dream that I wanted to live, but it takes all of us. I'm so proud to be with you because I know you're both women of substance, and I think that's what we need in the world is more substance, more people who care and want to do the right thing. But I'm like I said, I'm blessed with an incredible team, and that's why I'm able to accomplish what we accomplish.
And we're grateful this incredible team is in San Diego and is making things happen.
Thank you.
So thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much. Good to be with you.
Today's glam tip: never underestimate the power of confidence. Whether you're walking into a courtroom or a community event, advocate like a DA. Facts, poise, and purpose.
Be prepared and feel comfortable in your own skin. You'll be unstoppable.
Summer, thank you for your unwavering commitment to justice. You've inspired all of us today.
And to our audience, if you learned something powerful, please share this episode, raise awareness, and be an advocate.
Like your weekly dose of glam with your grind? Don't forget to hit subscribe.
It's law, it's life, it's the Glamorous Grind.